The Olympic Games symbolized the peace, the friendship, the brotherhood among the different peoples. And this was because every war stopped for 3 months during the games in ancient times. A sacred truce was declared, and during this truce the cities didn't have the right to enter a war. If they entered the war during the truce, they had to pay a huge fine, which was imposed to the cities by the members of the Olympic Committee. So it seems that the truce, the sacred truce, was respected by all. The first recorded Olympic Games in the history of Greece took place in 776 before Christ, and finally the Olympic Games were abolished by the Christian Emperor Theodosius in 394 AD. Idolatry was so persistent in the country, so when the people became Christians, when Christianity was spread, the first Christians were not interested so much about the temples. They were not interested at all about the temples, in the temples of the ancient gods, in the statues that depicted the gods, and in the rituals of the gods, in honor of the gods. And that's why many temples were closed, many of them were converted into Christian churches, many statues were remelted, and they used the material, the metal ones. The marble, many of the marble statues were destroyed in the Christian period, we have to accept that. And the games, the festivals in honor of the gods were abolished. So Theodosius abolished the games in 394 AD. The Olympic Games, though, took place not in Athens, but in Olympia, in Peloponnese, in the south peninsula of Greece, in the sanctuary of Zeus. And they took place every 4 years. It was a Greek festival. The athletes and the Greeks, only the Greeks had the right to participate in the Olympic Games, and the athletes had to go to Olympia from all over the then known world, the Greek city-states and their colonies of Asia Minor, North Africa, South Italy and Sicily. So they needed to travel in safety, and that's why the truce was declared. And the only prize for the victors was an olive wreath, but it was considered to be honor for the families and the cities to have Olympic victors. When an Olympic victor went back to his homeland after a victory, the people pulled down a section of the walls of the city for the Olympic victor to pass in his chariot, to enter the city in his chariot. They believed that if the city had such men, Olympic victors who could fight and win, this city didn't need any walls. Now, on your left-hand side, the highest hill of Athens, the hill of Lycabettus. On the summit of this hill you can see a small Christian church dedicated to St. George Lycabettus. The height of this hill is 278 meters above sea level. The height of the Acropolis hill only 156 meters above sea level. So this is the highest point of the city and not the Acropolis hill. Permit me also to mention that the 97% of the Greeks nowadays are Christian Orthodox. And that's why you'll see churches all over, one of them on the summit of the hill, dedicated to St. George. On your left-hand side, the Canadian Embassy, and in front, in the square, you see one of our favorite works of art, a runner made of Kostas Varochos, and this work of art is made of layers of glass and iron joints. Kostas Varochos, one of the famous sculptors who live in Athens, live and work in Athens nowadays. In the past, the runner was set up in Omonia Square, one of the historical squares of the city, but after the construction of the new subway, it was transported and set up here, and it will remain here. One of our favorite works of art in Athens. On the left, the Hilton Hotel of Athens. On the right, the National Gallery. In this museum, you can see the history of the Greek painting. The National Gallery in Athens. The total area of the city of Athens is about 3,000 square kilometers. A huge city nowadays. 3,000 square kilometers, including the port named Piraeus. Piraeus is the main port of the city since the beginning of the 5th century before Christ. It was a decision of Themistocles, a great admiral who lived in this city, a contemporary of Pericles, but this Themistocles was a really great man. He managed to persuade the Athenians to use Piraeus as the main port of the city instead of the Phaleron Bay, because he had foreseen the strategic significance of this port. Piraeus had 3 natural harbors. One of them was the commercial harbor and the other 2 the military harbors. And also Themistocles managed to persuade the Athenians to fortify Piraeus with strong and tall walls, to fortify the city and to fortify the roads that linked the city and its port, the so-called long walls, which can still be seen here and there in Athens and in Piraeus as well. And this great man had foreseen the danger from the Persians, so he managed to persuade the Athenians to use the profits from the mines. The Athenians had silver and lead mines in Lavrion. It's an area 67 kilometers away from the city. It seems that the mines belong to the state. The state hired the mines to individuals who paid a rent to the state. And imagine, please, that the profits from the mines were shared among the citizens. Nowadays we cannot share anything, but in those times the Athenians shared the profits from the mines. So Themistocles managed to persuade the Athenians not to share the money, but to use the money for the building of a war fleet, 200 triremes, small warships. Exactly because they were small warships, it was easy for the Greeks to maneuver them and turn in the straits between the island of Salamis and Athens. So they managed to defeat the Persians in the naval battle of Salamis in 480 before Christ, that is 10 years after the Battle of Marathon. And this naval battle of Salamis is considered to be one of the most decisive battles of antiquity. Now you'll tell me, who cares about the Greeks and the Persians? All of us. I'll tell you why. Because the modern historians believe that if the Persians had managed to capture Greece at the beginning of the 5th century before Christ, not only the history of this country, but the history of the Mediterranean peoples, the history of Europe, your history would have been completely changed, completely different. So the Persian Wars are important for the history of the world. Maybe if the Persians had managed to capture Greece, we wouldn't have what followed the Persian Wars, this great flowering in every sort of learning. Are you still awake? Are you interested in history? Yes, okay. It's a historical tour, eh? It's not only a tour just to pass the time. You are in a historical city, one of the most glorious cities of the past. The name of the city is Athena, and there is a very old myth about the name of the city. It is said that in very old times, 2 gods entered a contest for sovereignty over the city, and because they wanted to gain the favor of the people, they gave the best presents they could to the city. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, planted an olive tree on the summit of the Acropolis hill, so she gave to the people the olives and the olive oil. Poseidon, the god of the sea, threw his trident. Do you know the trident of the god Poseidon? A spear, like a big fork, let's say like the Greek letter psi. From the spot that the trident touched the ground, sea water sprang forth, and then the people voted, the men in favor of Poseidon, the women in favor of Athena. But there was one woman more in the population, so the victor was the goddess Athena, who gave her name to the city. That's why the Greek name of this city is Athena, not Athens. Athens is the English name. No need to say to you that Poseidon became furious about this vote. He flooded the shores and he said that the women won't have the right to vote anymore. So we lost the right to vote. But this old and clever myth explains not only the name of the city, but also the ancient political system, which was democracy. This city is considered to be the cradle of democracy.